He picked me right up in his arms, lifting my feet off the floor and swung me around. I was in a state of shock. I'd sent that letter off weeks ago. I never dreamed the man would actually show up. I brought Taj into the kitchen and offered him something to eat before taking him to my little apartment. It was then he filled me in on the strange sequence of events that led to his decision to come to Evita. He'd been touring Europe, ending with the concert at Royal Albert Hall. His schedule had been so grueling. He was taking 3 hot baths a day to relax. On his last night in London, he was in his hotel room, soaking in the tub, thinking that when he got back to the States, he was going to look into buying land in the Caribbean, since his family was from the West Indies. He realized how exhausted he was and how much he needed a special place to unwind, like an island. When he emerged from the bath, he noticed an envelope under the door. My letter was inside, and that was enough of a sign for him. I was thrilled and nervous all at once. Thrilled to see Taj, and nervous because my parents were due to arrive soon. After that, if all went according to my plans, I was going to Kathmandu to see Alejandro. Taj's mere presence, however, was enough to soothe any anxieties I had for the moment. Our reunion turned out to be quite passionate. Taj loved the restaurant. He was also a vegetarian, except that as a die-hard fisherman, he also ate fish. He often sat inside while I was in the kitchen playing his steel string guitar, and several times played for our customers. It did not take him long to acclimate to the easy pace of life on Ibiza. My friends were delighted to have this wonderful man and his music in our midst. Taj picked up the Spanish language with great facility. He especially loved sitting in the port and playing his harmonica. The Ibisencos loved him. Taj had this amazing ability to sit in a room full of people, tune into their vibrations, and sing everyone into a more harmonious state of mind. He'd arrived at the best time of the year, so we spent many days on the beach. When Taj arrived, I had no idea how long he would stay. When my parents came to Evita to visit me, he was still with me in my little apartment in town. I kept many secrets from my disapproving parents. During their entire week-long visit, I never once took them to see where I was living, causing them to wonder. My mother brought special Armenian foods from home, bulgur and red lentils, and of course the tortillas I asked for, and made several meals for everyone in the restaurant. My parents could not understand my fascination for Evita, nor why I would choose to live in such primitive fashion after the luxuries I'd been accustomed to at home. They complained about the smell of open sewers, ridiculed the way my friends looked, and my mother was convinced everyone was stealing from the till. I was glad to see them, but at the same time couldn't bear all the criticism of my lifestyle. My mother was intuitive, and after meeting Taj one night at La Tierra, she had suspicions we were more than friends. My mother could barely get out the words to express her shock at my involvement with the black man, no matter how nice he was. If you ever came home with a black baby, it would just kill us. I couldn't even respond to such a statement. Oh, mother. To expect they would be delighted at the thought of their daughter involved in an interracial relationship would have been absurd. My father had never even seen a black person until he arrived on Ellis Island at the age of 15. For my father, the idea of me sleeping with any man was more than he could handle, prompting him to tell me, after observing firsthand the free lifestyle I was living, that I was worse than a wild dog. Yeah. I suppose that is why when I began to talk to my parents about renting out the restaurant and going to India, my father was the one to persuade my mother to let me go, to get it out of my system. After all, that is exactly what he did in those years he was waiting for my mother to grow up. I'd seen the photos of him in his daredevil youth, hanging off cliffs in Yosemite, as a joker dressed like Valentino, sword in hand, as a hobo and a Russian Cossack, or the ladies' man in a bathing costume, on the beach in Venice, California, a beautiful woman under each arm. He'd even told me about the wolf whistle he had on his convertible 1929 DeSoto. So I'm just going to skip ahead because I don't want to take too much time. So Taj is still with me in Evita. And on the full moon in May, David, a dropped-out entrepreneur from San Francisco, had a party at his apartment in the Beehive in Figueretes. The Beehive was the name given to an apartment building where most of Evita's old guard lived. The people, mostly Americans, who were a decade or more older than me and had already been living in Evita for some time. Taj had some tracks on tape from his upcoming album, and he played them for us all night long on David's powerful sound system, singing along at full throttle while a group of us danced into the wee hours. When the crowd thinned out, I heard a knock at the door and went to answer it. It was Joni Mitchell. Oh. Her long blonde hair streaming in the night breeze. I was speechless. All I could manage was a hi. She looked at me quizzically. Is Taj Mahal here? He sure is, I responded as Taj walked up behind me. The moment they saw each other, they literally jumped into each other's arms like long-lost friends. It was quite a reunion, with both of them explaining the events that had brought them to Evita at the same time. Joni was on her way back to the States after some months traveling around Europe, ending with a stay in the Greek islands. She'd made a stop in Evita, not knowing a soul, and was laying in bed in her hotel room trying to sleep when she heard music through the open window. It sounded so much like Taj, she continued listening until she realized his voice was live. She began wandering the streets until she found the source. Taj and Joni caught up with each other, and after that night she stayed around a while, coming to eat at the restaurant and meeting everyone in our crowd. One afternoon we threw a big party at Raymond and Marie's finca, that's a farmhouse, Can Vidal, in the countryside near the village of Santa Gertrudis. It was one of those idyllic Evita days, and everyone we knew turned out. Zed and I brought the food. I had my dulcimer, Taj had his guitar, Henry had his flute. I was too embarrassed to play my dulcimer in the midst of such company, so I turned it over to Joni. Everyone was lazing around in various states of undress, taking sun, reading the latest magazine someone brought from New York, eating, drinking, smoking, and listening to the music jam. There were beautiful children all over playing happily. Even the local goat lady, wearing her big straw hat, wandered across the property with her herd and joined in the festivities. The day was memorable enough to later find its way into one of Joni's songs. I caught a plane to Spain, went to a party down a red dirt road. There were lots of pretty people there, reading Rolling Stone, reading Vogue. Maybe you know the rest.